This is Kent Hance, best storyteller in Texas, saying of the day from Will Rogers, never miss a chance to shut up. A lot of our people in politics ought to go with that one. The guy that got elected attorney general in Virginia made a comment about one of his political opponents a few years ago that he hoped that the political opponent's children were murdered and killed. And the guy got elected, still got elected. And I think they just ignored it, and it happened, came out early enough that it probably, saved him a little. But the elections this time, I just loved watching the pundits tell about the election and what was happening and give all these in-depth studies, and they all overlooked the most unusual result that you'll see in election. I'll touch on it in just a moment. But they overlooked these things, and they had their mind made up what they wanted the story to be. And story was negative Trump, which the press, they hate him anyway, and he hates them, and it's a mutual understanding. And that they, landslide for the Democrats and everything like that. Well, just stop and look at this. First of all, Mandami won in New York. He's a socialist. A lot of people say he's communist. He has not said that he's communist. Barry Goldwater always said that a communist is nothing more than a socialist with guns. I always thought that was pretty funny. But he ran a hard left campaign, and he was talking about that, free groceries, no increase in rents for your housing, and, maybe free gasoline. It just went on. And he backtracked some of it later in the election. And he won, and I thought that he would win. They've elected people that are, hard left, and that they go out of the way to overlook whether they're a communist or socialist or whatever. But a socialist going around in New York City, starting to talk about free groceries. Well, I mean, it's hard to beat free. And he had a tremendous amount of support from people that heard him, and they thought, times are too tough as it is. And so he will be around. And, when he doesn't get anything passed, he's going to say, well, it's the Republicans' fault. So-and-so, didn't help me, or so-and-so did. And he'll have some excuses. But just getting out there and saying you're going to have something free and you're going to freeze the rents. Now, as somebody that owns apartments, how do you freeze the rents and you don't allow any increases? And that's going to be very difficult. And he'll have a hard time doing all that. But New York City is a blue city. I mean, they don't. It's rare they elect a Republican, and when they do, the Republican has to have a tremendous amount of money. Giuliani had an advantage. And then Bloomberg, he made adjustments, and you look at what he spent. He spent $10, $15, $20, $25 million of his own money. I think he'd have a hard time doing it right now. But the public, they've got a short memory that if somebody does something they don't like, they're on it right then. And so you look at Trump, that he's had those people were mad at him anyway in New York City, and reelected big time was Alvin Bragg, district attorney that prosecuted Trump before when things came up. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But the attorney general of Virginia got elected despite making the statements. But I thought the funniest thing in that race was at the end when he won, and he said, we must stop division. It's okay to ask that your children of your opponent be murdered, and you should never say those kind of things. I don't care who you're running against. The Virginia race for governor, the lady that was a member of Congress, from Virginia, she won that going away. I felt like all along, starting back in the early 80s, there's going to be hard to win congressional races in Virginia because what was happening, a lot of the GS 9, 12, and 15, the highly rated government officials were moving to McLean, Virginia, and Alexandria and Arlington. And as you move people out there that were making $150,000 to $200,000 a year, then they were going to vote, and they're not going to just go out there and work out and not vote. I mean, they're hardcore. And in New Jersey, they were saying that Republicans had a chance to win it. I thought it was a long shot at best. So we'll see what happens in those states. But here's the election. Here's one I want to talk about. This is one that should have been big news. And what's happened over the last several years, the lieutenant governor and governor, with the governor's support, and some of the people in the House and the Speaker, they've made it you can't pass an increase in taxes if it's above a certain amount without an election. You have to have an election by the voters. And so Austin got into that this time, and they had Proposition Q, and they needed passage of an ordinance, Proposition Q, and just to increase taxes $110 million. And they voted it down 2-1. That's big news. Austin's most liberal city in the state of Texas, and they vote that down 2-1. I couldn't believe it. And that somebody said, well, it's the officials. They don't think the officials are trustworthy. I don't know that might be true, but I don't know that I believe it. I think they just didn't want to raise taxes. They want you to fund what they've got, but get it from someone else. Russell Long, U.S. Senator from Louisiana, used to say that on taxes, people have a position of don't tax you and don't tax me. Tax the guy behind the tree that we can't see. And that, you got to look out for that. But it's just tells me a lot about what happened in the election, that they came out and voted 2-1 against raising taxes. I just couldn't believe it. Showed the, different things there that they were going to have to spend money on. And and there was a good cross section of some of the leadership that fully supported raising the taxes. But in this day and time, I think with what happened in Austin, it's going to be hard to get any city government to raise taxes by a certain percent in accordance with their payment that they're making now. People don't want to raise taxes. They say, well, it's up to so-and-so. And I don't think that was it as much as it was up to send a message to the city council. We don't want more taxes. $110 million is what they were asking for. Other elections or different elections came along. There were 17 propositions on constitutional amendments, and I voted for all 17. I'd watched them go through the process, and I thought they were good. There was one in there that had to do with kind of with political wokeness, and that the emphasis on the one was that there should be no interference with the parents' right on teaching their children, or they shouldn't get into the parents having a method that they could cross up to what the parents wanted to be able to do with their children. And that failed in 2 counties, Frio and down Pearsall, Texas, and the other in Travis County. But it tells me the voters are still liberal in Travis County, but they're also pretty hard right when it comes to raising taxes. Of the 17 issues on the ballot, outlawing illegal aliens voting happened in every county except 2. And that was Travis Frio. They still have their liberal roots, but when it comes to raising taxes, people in Austin are just like people in Lubbock. They don't want somebody raising their taxes.
Do you have any thoughts on the announcement that Nancy Pelosi is going to retire?
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. Whether you like her or dislike, she was a tough bird. I mean, she's flying low and was strong. And her dad was Postmaster General when Postmaster General was the top political appointment of the new president. And so she grew up around a household that they were playing hardball on politics. And she continued to play that and play very hardball politics. She would not have let some of the people get by with some of the things they've gotten by with in the Democratic leadership. And she just wouldn't have. She was not one to try to work out a compromise. She wanted you to be loyal to her. If you go back and look at Nancy Pelosi, she had very few split votes. I mean, they were party line votes. They'd lean on they'd have probably 9 out of 10 would not be that party line vote, but she would always have the budget or something that Republicans were having control over, and she was leaning hard to make sure you voted correctly, in her opinion.
Chancellor, when you say that she played political hardball, can you give us an example of maybe not her, but just in general how hardball is played in Washington, D.C.?
Sure. There are a lot of times, let's say you've got a pet project in your district and you're trying to get a dam built to have a new lake that's needed by the people in the district, and that the White House needs your vote or something. Well, somebody on the White House staff going to say, look, we've got to really evaluate. We don't know whether we're going to be able to sign this with that bill in there or not. And so they'll cut out your project. Mm-hmm. And that's not unusual. That happens all the time. So you have to be careful. The one thing I always felt like, I didn't want to advertise what my special project. I might go around and talk to people, but I didn't want to get in the newspaper that I had a special project. Then everybody and his dog would lean on you, and it would be difficult to overcome that. I thought the Tech game, especially with Brigham Young, was well spirited, and that everybody had a good time, and that some student Tech had a sign that said, "We follow the book of Morton," referring to our quarterback. A lot of people were out, and I had my cowboy boots on. I was over for the game day show and talked to Pete Thamel, Pete Thamel's a good guy, and he was sports editor for the New York Times, and then left and went with Yahoo Sports. And then he's wound up now with ESPN. And he's always trying to, write about certain issues that are coming up in college football and basketball. Brigham Young fans, they're going to be good rivals with us. They are hard competitors, and that'll, in my opinion, be a good rivalry. And they were here early and stayed late, and they brought in a lot of fans. They had that northwest section where you had the blue, but over on the east side you could look, and there were spots that the blue would have 15, 20, and spot again they'd have 5 or 10, and so they're working it.
You said how the Mormons, they don't really travel, they show up.
Yeah, they just show up. It's like the Catholics going to a Notre Dame game. They don't travel; they just show up. You have a ball game that's in the playoffs and it's in Dallas area. I'll tell you, the Mormons will show up in big time. Yeah, 61-year-old man in Florida was arrested after threatening to stab a neighbor and eat her dog. Now, that he ought to go run for attorney general up in Virginia. Golly, that's still the craziest thing. The voters they've had so much thrown at them. You can't sensationalize something to shock them anymore. I just don't think there's anything you can do to shock voters anymore. They've heard it all, and they've heard some comments from different candidates, and they may pay attention. They may just, well, the economy's bad, and we'll give the guy a vote. We'll see how he does. And some of the voters, thought that it was a mistake, but he really didn't mean it. Some of the voters, about half of them, thought it was really bad, but it wasn't enough to make a difference in the race. I would, hey, in my day and time in politics, if somebody said about their opponent, I hope their children are murdered, that I can piss on the grave. If somebody had said that, you would have been through, no matter what party, no matter what, group was backing you. I think it'd have been all over. But he won that thing about 53, 47. So it was a big victory. And voters, they'll vote when they're mad. And W.D. Dub Rushing, who I've talked about on this show, Dub Rushing told me something when I ran for office. He said, there are some people that don't like your opponent. And he said, I'd rather have one person that hates my opponent than 50 that like me, because the 50 won't spend all their time messing with you, and that one will be going door to door saying he's no good and all kinds of stuff, make it more difficult. The election comes back to this. Democrats and Republicans are both going to be pushing hard for the midterm elections in 26. And I think that one of the reasons that they did not get a settlement on this national debt issue is the Democrats wanted to keep it in hand to help them in Virginia, keep those voters really mad, and it was a smart move on their part, not good for the country. But anytime someone's in the White House and they've got control of the House and Senate, they're going to have a hard time passing that, because the other side's going to try to twist your arm to get something for nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's what they were trying to do, I think. I guess the thing to say in wrapping up, the saying of the day, never miss a chance to shut up. And that was Will Rogers. I think that's probably a great statement for all of us to remember. Have a good day.